This is my art journal, Singular Moments. I feel that it is important to give each of my journals a name, an identity of their own. This art journal that I am going to show you took about a year to complete. I don't art journal every day, but I might work on a page for a week if it grabs hold of me and really takes me exciting places. This art journal began life as a spiral bound cookbook that I found in a charity shop. I love its squarish shape. I'm finding that I'm increasingly interested in squares because I find they work well as portrait pages or landscape pages. I kept the original spiral binding, but because the original paper was shiny, flimsy paper, I cut each page down to stubs and replaced it with a cardboard page. If you would like to see more of this process, it is detailed in my video Art Journal Ideas Tip-ins. So the title page. This was one of the last pages that I did, simply because I didn't know what I was going to do with the page. So as I had paint left on my palette from other pages, I used it up on this page. So there is yellow acrylic paint, there is some sort of red sort of ink under here, there's watercolour on top, there's gouache. The writing is done in gouache with a paintbrush. Gouache is an opaque watercolour. The ink blot, make a puddle of ink and then using something fine like a knitting needle or the head of a sewing needle, and just put it in the puddle and flick out and draw the lines out. This page, this is a stencil. The birds are a stencil. It's watercolour. The writing is a fountain pen. The bird is Derwent Inktense pencils. This is a photo that I manipulated in Photoshop and transferred using matte medium. If you would like to see more of that process, it is detailed in my Alphabet Adventure series. E is for envelope. This page is Derwent Inktense again. This is one of my sketches, pencil sketches that I have outlined in pen. This is handmade paper. Marker, Sharpie markers, and Derwent Graphitints, and the glasses that I picked up in a supermarket car park and brought home in 2,000 miles in my suitcase, much to my son's disgust. Only his mother would do something like that. The next page, I turn it that way so you can see, there's a portrait page. This page has lots of elements underneath. That is, if you can see here, that is a stamp. If you press the stamp into gel medium and then stamp it on the page and allow it to dry, it gives you a nice texture. This area here is actually the sewing cotton from when I sewed the glasses in place. So it's just been glued down with gel medium and allowed and coloured in on the page, allowed to become part of the next page. This is a feather that has been encased in layers of matte medium. And the white is gouache with the paintbrush. On my website, scatteredreflectionsstudio.com, there is a page devoted to how I do the backgrounds of my pages. This is Derwent Graphitints and white gouache for the paintbrush. This is acrylic paint with areas scrubbed off with a baby wipe and charcoal. Acrylic paint once more, laid on with the brayer, lots of scratching in the wet paint, and white coloured pencil. Acrylic paint once more. This stencil is available for you to print out, to download and print and cut out yourself. On my website, look for Alphabet Adventure, H is for heart. This page in detail on my video Art Journal Ideas, Journal in Plain Sight, tips on how to hide your journaling from prying eyes. This page is acrylic paint. This is a transparency printed out. Acrylic paint. This page is acrylic paint and walnut spray, walnut ink spray, and graphite and Faber-Castell markers. This page, I was interested in resists, so I've used things like wax candles and oil pastels and masking tape to give a resist with the watercolour painted over the top. There's a lot under this page, a lot of layers before I got it to where I was satisfied with it. Oil pastel mainly, and gesso, a lot of gesso covering it up, and finally black ink over the top. This page is is canvas pieces that are actually sewn on. So in this place I combined embroidery, here it's all embroidered on, and then painted over the top of that embroidery with acrylic paint. That's all pretty much acrylic paint. This was a technique I read about on the web that I didn't quite get to work. The idea of making your own crackle by using Aquadia. So you put a layer of acrylic paint on, then a layer of PVA, and then a layer of acrylic paint, and then when the PVA is almost dry you scrub it back. But mixed results with that page. I certainly didn't get any crackling, but it still produced an interesting effect by the same token. I enjoy very much doing pages of a word. So this is fine liner, so watercolour background, fine liner, a marker, Sharpie marker, gouache with a paintbrush, and then these letters were cut out from a stencil out of scrapbooking paper and glued on. This was an ink splatter that I had on another piece of paper that I fussy cut out and glued on, and then added the crow on a background of watercolour. One of my faces and a Nalini Singh quote, black ink, coloured pencil, white coloured pencil, Prussian blue gouache over a background of watercolour. And the last page, a happy page, acrylic paint and white gouache. Now the cover, I've used Aquadeer PVA and drawn fine lines. These lines are all drawn in PVA, so that's the original cookbook showing the cover showing underneath, and then I've coloured the sections in using a coat of gesso and then Neocolor water soluble crayons for the colouring. And that is my journal, Singular Moments of the last year.